5 for the winner, and still the undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion of...
Back UFC fans, and as you just saw there, the Polish power Jan Blachowicz, he successfully defended his title in the light heavyweight championship against the contender Israel Adesanya from the middleweight division. So this was a big night for UFC 259. There was 3 title defenses in total. I'm going to get to Nunes and obviously Jan as well a little bit at the end of the video, but I'm just going to speak about the main card initially for the main fight, the headline fight on the main card. So these two chaps obviously never met before. As we know, Israel's come up from the middleweight division to take on the light heavyweight champ Jan, and a lot of people had Jan, they'd written him off, and he's been doubted at every turn. To be honest, his whole career he's always had people doubting him and just basically writing him off. The event itself was actually hosted at the UFC Apex again in Nevada, the US, and it was a behind closed door event, so there wasn't any spectators for this, obviously because of COVID. So obviously as a result of Jan successfully defending his title, Israel was unable to become the 5th all-time double champion, so obviously holding 2 titles in 2 divisions at the same time. And as we know, there's people like Conor McGregor and a few other famous athletes in the past that have done that. So he was unsuccessful in his attempt, but as we know, he came in a lot lighter than he needs to. Not to say that's the reason why he lost. The fact that Israel was lighter, as you see joking here, he's holding pizza, he had plenty more room to add more weight, because he met his weight, but he was slightly under. He could have had more, but he wasn't really concerned. I think this is him just dipping his toes into the actual lightweight division. So as I mentioned, Jan wasn't the bookie's favourite. It wasn't the critics or the fans' favourite, to be honest. A lot of people just doubted him so much and had Israel. Obviously, Israel has been undefeated up to this point in his division. So obviously people think he's not human and can he be beaten? And people are thinking he can't. But obviously he can. And that's what happened. Jan showed why he is the champion and deserves that respect. So the fight itself. Now, in the first 3 rounds, both of the men naturally were looking to minimise their mistakes and sussing each other out, little jabs here, kicks there and whatnot. I will say Adesanya was the better striker, obviously as expected. Jan obviously kept throwing those punches and kicks, and as we know, he's a high-level kickboxer, so they really did stand out at times. The feints themselves from Israel, they did trouble Jan a bit, especially as he did land some good strikes. But in fact, overall, the actual entire fight, it was Jan who actually landed more strikes overall within each round. That's the UFC official stats, by the way. From my analysis in the first 2 rounds at least, I would say that Israel had it in terms of just general the attack. He was a lot more on Jan and generally did land at times a few more kicks. He did miss a lot of headshots, as you can see, a lot of good block ones. But when he went into the 3rd round, this is when Jan started teasing us with his wrestling skills, and he actually managed to take Israel down. However, it wasn't for a very long period of time, and he kept getting out of it very easily. So obviously that didn't lead to much at the time. And another thing I noticed, despite the punches, the jabs, the kicks and what that Israel did land on Jan, they just weren't powerful enough. Like, the guy is a lot bigger than him, a lot stronger, and he could take the hits. And I think Israel, obviously, he kind of thought that might happen, that he'd be able to take the abuse, and he certainly did, because he wasn't hurt. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, Jan wasn't even that fatigued. Even by the 5th round. We got to the 4th and 5th rounds, obviously those being the main rounds, shall we say, for this. That's when we really saw Jan come into his own, and he obviously got Israel down to the floor again both times and really started to shine through with his grappling skills, getting the half guard and just generally just ground and pounding on the guy. And Israel just couldn't get out of it. That's where he used his legs, he used his arms properly, very well in his wrestling to keep Israel down. He just couldn't move, and it's just like a heavy lump of meat on him basically. So he wasn't moving, and this is where Jan gained all the points, I'd say. So the judges actually scored it at 49-46, 49-45 and 49-45 again. And 2 of the 3 judges gave Jan a 10-8 round, in round 5, by the way, obviously rewarding him for his dominant groundwork, including obviously closing the fight in the mount and dropping some heavy punches to the face, which I would agree with. 4th and 5th, particularly 5th, that's where Jan came through and he did dominate, and I do believe that he deserves those higher points for that. But it doesn't undermine the fact that in the first two that Israel was putting a lot of heat on him and wasn't being dominated in any way. So I think purely it was based on the fact that, the judges are looking at that last round really more than anything with the groundwork, and they went in his favour. But I'm not disputing that. I agree with them. Dana White has slammed them, calling them fucking insane, those judges. He doesn't agree with it, and we're going to get to that in a moment, what he actually said. But Israel, though, I will say, I've got massive respect for the guy. He came up in the division. A lot of people wouldn't do that. They'd be scared to. They want to stay in cruise where they feel comfortable and be at the top. But he came in. He came in lighter. He was prepared, but he admitted it in the interview. It was just like a bad day at the gym. It wasn't for me that day. I've learned from it. He was humble. He was very calm, not arrogant. You saw at the end of the fight, the two were like talking, laughing, joking, being very polite with one another and respectful. It was very nice to see, and that's another athlete that I respect based on those merits. He could have thrown his toys out the pram, but he certainly did not do that. Obviously, being his first time losing, obviously in a new division as well, he said he has he's coming back. He's not leaving the light heavyweight, but he does want to go back to the middleweight just to defend his title and his belt and make sure the guys know that he's still the boss there. And he's going to go back to training camp. Probably will bulk up a bit more this time and then get to work on coming back to face Jan again at some point. Joe Rogan actually interviewed Jan like he does with all the athletes after the fights. And when he asked him about what he thought about Israel's performance, he was saying, I thought he'd be a little bit faster, but he wasn't. But he still hit really hard. So I was surprised by that. And he said it's something I didn't expect. So he felt, that he should do more of the left hand and he should use more jabs and put pressure on him. But that is one game plan, and the fight is a second, and obviously a different thing. So it's interesting, and obviously all fighters can go in and they assess other athletes and what they do, and how they train and their style and whatnot, and they kind of have these ideas of how they might be on the night. But obviously guys can come in and surprise them, and obviously that was the case there. But again, he had massive respect and props for Israel, and didn't badmouth him or criticize him in any way. He just said, he was a bit slow, and I thought, but still hit really hard. So interesting comments. But massive respect to this guy. I really enjoy watching him fight, and I'll be honest, from what I saw, for a big guy, he still had a lot more in the tank, and I would like to see him be challenged further, and I also would like to see him have some respect, because just seeing those photos there, you can see the rise, well, the fall, then the rise. To get into where he is now is not been an easy task. He's lost and he's been at the bottom. He's almost kicked out of the sport itself and had to come back. So massive props to him, massive respect. People should now start, I think, hopefully change their tune on him and not put him down just because they're fanboys of other people who are a bit more popular. The guy is a decent fighter, and that's a fact. When Jan was asked who's next, he said he wants to take some time out and spend much needed rest with his family, but he did say that he would like to go up against a veteran light heavyweight, Glover Teixeira. Now, I believe I've pronounced that wrong. That's the Brazilian UFC fighter. Please forgive me, Glover or Glover. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but that's who he's saying he would like to fight, and he thinks he deserves it. So that's who we're looking at, I'd say. And just quickly on Dana, so he said he had no outcome or issues with the outcome of the fight, but it was the fact that the decisions have been dished out at 10 to 8 rounds. He said it's just not on, and he believes that the judges are getting bad advice and bad info, looking at these scorecards here pulled up from BT Sport. So I would kind of agree with him, but I don't know as much as he does. So we'll see what comes from that, and if it's going to be changed, because he said he wants things to be changed for future fights because he believes that something's not right there. So we'll see what happens there in that aspect. So we'll look out to see any updates from Dana on that one. Obviously, as we know, he's in charge, so I'm sure he will change things to suit his narrative. Do a quick recap on the main co-events, and that was of Amanda Nunes, who successfully defended her title in the women's bantam and also featherweight title against the Aussie Megan Anderson, the number one contender, and she smashed her to oblivion, to be honest, in the first round, just 2 minutes 3 seconds with a triangle armbar. So what an absolute boss there. So she was another athlete on the night who managed to successfully defend her 2 titles and just show to people that she's here to stay, and you're not getting my belts anytime soon. So I think I'm going to do a full video on that one, guys. So I'll try and get that out soon, and then we can discuss about Amanda, because you know she's definitely got my respect, because I followed her for a bit, but I haven't really covered her. So I think I'm going to start talking more about the women's sports as well, which I hope some of you might appreciate. And yeah, again, respect, Amanda. Enjoy your rest, enjoy your break, and enjoy your belts. And I look forward to seeing some more fights from you later this year. Hopefully a bit longer than 1 round this time. And lastly, guys, Izzy Jan, he was unsuccessful in defending his bantamweight title against the contender Aljamain Sterling. Now, in the 4th round, there was a very controversial and illegal knee to the head, obviously to Sterling, which caused the disqualification, and that was in 4 minutes 29. So up until that point, a lot of people had it down as Jan as the winner, and I would agree. I think he did perform a lot better, but what has been said is that Sterling thinks that this was a deliberate thing. A lot of people are saying he's an actor and he doesn't deserve the belt, and they're hating on him and he's getting trolled and whatnot. But to me, it looked quite genuine, sincere. I don't think there was any faking going on. I'd be very surprised in the UFC. You know, it's not that sort of sport, in my opinion. But I know that Sterling didn't want that belt. You know, he said, you know, it's not the way I want to win a belt. It's simple as that. I haven't actually won, really. It's a disqualification. So no one wants to win by default. It's not how you win, you know, just like it's cheap and it's not real. So I feel sorry for the guy, and I feel sorry for both of them, to be honest. You know, Jan, he's apologised here. You know, he said he hopes that he'll get a good recovery, and they can hopefully fight again one day properly. Is that going to happen? We shall see. I don't know what the sanctions are at the moment on Jan, if he's going to be banned for a while, or there's going to be some restrictions on him fighting Sterling in the future, but we'll see. And I think ultimately it needs to happen, so we'll see. So I hope you liked today's video, guys and girls. If you did, as always, please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the main event with Jan and Israel, and also the 2 co-main events. What are your thoughts on that? Like I said, I will make a video on Nunes. I might do one for the bantamweight one, but I'll see what I can do, because as you know, guys, I make a lot of videos. So anyway, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone who's subscribing to me and supporting me on my channel. It's growing nicely, and I really appreciate it. And I will share the love one day back for it. So take care, and I'll see you soon. Amigo and Finis, signing out.